Okay, thank you. Thanks, Simon. As Simon said, my name's Brian White. I look after the library at TAM, the Australian Motor Life Museum at Kembla Grange, just outside Wollongong. For those who've never heard of TAM, I'll give you a brief history of the museum. It started about 30 years ago from members of the Illawarra Vintage and Veteran Car Club. They decided they needed a space to display their vehicles and their artefacts, so they decided they'd build themselves a museum. They purchased a block of land at Unanderra, just outside Wollongong, and in 1993 they started to build their museum. All volunteer labour, all member volunteer labour, and mostly donated materials and services. So they basically built it themselves, and they ended up calling themselves the Illawarra Motor Museum. And I remember going there on a club run in the late 90s, so it was quite a nice museum. After about 10 years, they decided they'd run out of room, so they needed to expand, but they couldn't on the site they were on. So they started looking for a new site. Around this time, Integral Energy were deciding to sell off spare land, and one of their blocks was the Integral Energy Parkland at Kembla Grange near Huntley Hill Climb. And through a lot of political wrangling, the local council ended up owning the parklands, and the group of people from the museum ended up getting a long-term lease from the local council at very cheap rates. So they had a new site, so they sold off the old site, the museum, and again built themselves a museum. All volunteer labour, donated materials and services, and built themselves a bigger, better museum. The Australian Motor Life Museum opened in late 2010, so it's been going almost 11 years now, and very popular. We have about 100 vehicles, including some bikes and several very old trucks, basically vehicles though. The mission statement for the museum is pre-1945, so pre-war vehicles. The library, with the technical and reference library, the policy is we only keep pre-1960 technical and reference stuff, apart from magazines and books. We don't keep just vehicles, we keep artefacts covering the motoring life of that era. So there's gramophones, signs, signposts, tools, gauges, typewriters, anything to do with motoring life of that era, we keep, and we have several thousand artefacts. The museum is 100% volunteer. There are no paid employees at all. Again, not for profit, so it's a charity, and we rely solely on entry fees to keep ourselves going. So we have no benefit from government or anything else. Myself, I joined the museum about 3 years ago in November 2018. About 9-10 months later, in mid-2019, I was asked whether I'd take over the library because our former librarian wanted to retire. So I've been looking after it for about 2 years. Okay, I was asked to talk about the library cataloguing and library access, particularly as it relates to what we've done in the last 2 years. I relate a lot to what Jenny Forbett said about museum libraries and collections. It rung quite a lot of bells. First off, I'd like to talk about the cataloguing, break it into the past, present and the future, and then talk about how we're improving the access both online and physical. Our past cataloguing. For those who have my vintage, you probably remember as a student, if you went into the local library, there was row upon row of little wooden boxes full of 5x3 index cards. If you wanted to find a book, you had to go and find it, alphabetical index on the cards, then go and find it. We actually still have 2 of those boxes in the bottom of a compactus. What happened then, they actually converted that card index to a simple Excel spreadsheet, and it basically was just a digitised card index. The Excel spreadsheet, 5 columns, 1 column was essential. The other 4 were all optional, and which included the Dewey Decimal and a couple of fields on publication date, author, and publisher. We use the Dewey Decimal system, or our own version of it. We change it around a little bit, and we have a catalogue of about 9,500 entries, so it's fairly big, and as a Excel spreadsheet it was very cumbersome. After about 6 months I was asked to look after take responsibility for the catalogue, because the former librarian was not totally computer literate, so I took over that. While cleaning up our PC, I discovered an unused Access database which contained our entire catalogue. So we had 2 versions, an Excel spreadsheet and an Access database. Chasing this down a little bit further, I found out it was 4 to 5 years old, and it was actually created by a previous volunteer who was a casual TAFE volunteering teacher and used to volunteer at the library, and he actually built this Access database 4 to 5 years earlier. But the disappointing thing was it never got used. They continued to use the Excel spreadsheet. Part of that 9,500 entries, we had our magazines on there, but there was only 1 entry per title. So if you have our collection of Autocar, 72 years of Autocar, all in bound, all bound, 3,500 to 4,000 magazines, was 1 entry in the catalogue. If we had another magazine that only had 2 or 3 issues, it had 1 entry. So it was, if you wanted to find a magazine, you had to go and look at the shelves. It really wasn't on the catalogue. So the last 2 years, what we've tried to do is to bring it up to date. First off, I started with the magazines to try and improve the visibility of that. We signed up to magazinecollector.net. I'd already signed my own collection on 4,500 magazines, so we knew what it was about. Over the last 2 years, we've added 10,000 magazines of our magazines to Magazine Collector, and we still have about 8,000 to go, which is mainly our collection of Autocar and the Motor. We've got about 7,000 there. They're all bound, so it's going to take a lot longer. Because we'd already had the Excel spreadsheet converted to Access, we thought this would be a good way to update our book catalogue. We contacted the former volunteer TAFE teacher, and he offered to come in for a morning and convert it again for us. So we took him up on that. He came in and deleted what was there and recreated our Access database. This certainly made our updating of our new entries a lot easier. It was a lot less prone to error, and we managed to create a lot better search functionality. At the time, I didn't know Access, but by borrowing books from the library, from the public library, basically taught myself Access. And we've created a lot better search facilities so we can actually find things now, so it's a lot better. The one downside was not online. We then attacked our general motoring books. At the end of 2019, we were joined by another volunteer, Tracy, who was a fully qualified librarian, just retired, and she'd spent the last 20 years in private school libraries in Auckland, and she was quite up to date with searching and implementing book catalogues. So at the start of 2020, she went looking for a catalogue for us, and she found Library Thing, which was a free catalogue, did everything we needed to, and so we signed up for that. And just as COVID hit, we started converting our library. Over the next 3 to 4 months, we got most of our books onto the catalogue by working from home. We stripped off what we thought from our old catalogue, printed it out, and basically updated it from home. Once COVID finished, we still had several months to go through and audit it again, to make sure we had the proper cover scans and everything else like that. Okay, where do we see ourselves going in the future? We decided, once we got the books onto the library thing, we thought, well, what's next? We thought the next best thing for our members was our repair manuals and parts manuals. They were all restoring cars, buying new cars, repairing cars, so we thought the repair manuals would be the best bang for our buck. So we decided to move those. So far, we've got about 330 stripped off the old catalogue. We looked as though we were just about to finish when the current COVID hit. We've been locked out of the library for the last 10 weeks now, so we just still haven't finished that. But so far, we've got from Austin to Renault. The rest of them from Rover onwards are all sitting on a library trolley, waiting to be added to the library as soon as we can get access back to the library. We still have additional things that we need to transfer to library thing and magazine collector, books and magazines that are buried amongst our technical and reference section. We just need to go through and pull those off and transfer them across. We were then looking at what do we do next. We have a big collection of handbooks, particularly the pre-war ones, where you get a handbook these days and it tells you how to operate the car and nice pretty pictures. But all the pre-war ones, because people would have to look after the car themselves, there's a lot of maintenance, a lot of repairs and how to service the cars. And we thought this would be the next best thing to help our members maintain their cars. They're spread across a couple of parts in our library. Plus, we've collected about 4 boxes of them that are sitting in a compactus, and we just need to sort those out, see which ones are pre-1960, which we'll keep, and the post-1960 ones we'll probably end up selling off to make a bit of money for the museum. We need to go through the motor magazine. We have 60 years of motor from 1928 to 1988 till it got incorporated into Autocar. There's some very valuable stuff there for our members, but until it's indexed, you've got no idea what's in there and how it can help. So at the moment, we're going through trying to catalogue the index. I'm taking the publisher's printed index, scanning it, using OCR and converting it. This stage is going into an Excel spreadsheet, and we will eventually end it up into a database. Okay, looking at the library access. When I first started, the library was described to me by several members as a hoard behind closed doors. We were determined to change that attitude. Because we've gone on to magazine collector and to library thing, both online. So we can actually spread that out and now give our members access to whatever they want to get to. We created links to the magazine collector and to a product called TinyCat, where Library Thing is a basic cataloguing system. TinyCat sits on top of that, and it gives the look and feel of a public library, and you can search, and it has got a basic library management facility in there if you want to use that. So it gives us the facility to put it out to our members. The executive were always didn't want to publicise it too much, but we did a presentation and convinced them that we needed a section on our town website for the library, which included catalogue links to both the magazines and the books. They agreed to that. So we now have, if anyone goes to the town website, onto the library section, there are 2 links on there, and they can go and search our collection, search the contents of our magazines, and find the articles they want to, contact us, and we can give them copies or scan them or help them whatever way they want to. We also wrote more detailed descriptions for both the magazines and books, and that is our magazine editor continues to run those in the bi-monthly magazine, just to give people a better feel for how to do it so it doesn't scare them off. The photo on this slide is a snapshot of our library. It's right in the middle of the museum, 22 metres by about 3 metres. As you can see down the left, we've got about 14 bays of brown-built shelving, and there's about 10 bays down the other side, down the right-hand side. Right down the middle between that, 10 bays of library shelving back-to-back, where all our general motoring books are. Just to the right of where this photograph is taken is a 16-bay compactus, which is very, very handy. And then behind the camera, we have another 8-bay compactus as well. So we have, we think we've got plenty of storage, but like most libraries, we will soon run out. And I think, as a couple of presenters have said today, we are starting to critically look at what should we keep and what shouldn't we keep, and what should be going off to other places. One of the things we have donated to another organisation, while we were doing our repair manuals, we discovered we had a lot of heavy truck like Kenworth and Iveco and that sort of truck repair manuals, which to us was actually wasted. So we contacted the Gundagai Heavy Vehicle Museum, offered it to them, and they were glad to take it. So we ended up donating 10 boxes of repair manuals to that museum. It would be a lot more value for them than it will be to us. They were totally wasted for us. As I said, a lot of people said that we were a hall behind closed doors. We were determined to improve our physical visibility. The white door in the middle of the photo was the doors to our library, had a staff-only sign and always kept closed. We went looking for a library sign, couldn't find one, so we made our own. And as you can see down the right-hand side, we've got a photo of a bookshelf, library down the side, and the door is basically open whenever we're there. So we have a lot of visitors knock on the door and come and say hello, and it certainly has improved our visibility. Our bi-monthly magazine, previously it always used to have a book review or something. We're now putting into the magazine what we're doing in the library, how we're improving it and such like. And we've had some good feedback from members saying, great that they know what's going on now, and they feel that they know more about the library than just a hoard. At the National Motoring Heritage Day, we held a stall selling off surplus magazines. The benefit of that was that visitors saw that we had a museum, and even last week we had a contact. Someone that came to the last Motoring Heritage Day wants to donate some magazines and books. So it was a visibility thing as well as just trying to sell off excess stock. One of the policies of the museum is that our library is a reference library only. It is not a lending library. And although we do lend to consistent members if they need one desperately. Some of our concerns for the future. Magazinecollector.net. A small one about the future or long-term survivability. Magazine Collector is a one-man band. It was created by John Avis, who runs it and such like, and he actually hosts it as a part of his family business. So if anything happens to John or that family business, what's the future of Magazine Collector? Not quite sure. So at the moment it's going well, and it provides us a good facility, and we get a lot of queries through that Magazine Collector from people looking for articles, looking for magazines, and they find them on there. Remaining items in the library, we still need to sort out what we're going to do. We have a huge amount of reference books, manuals, parts manufacturers' labels like battery catalogues, Repco catalogues, all sorts of spare parts you can think of. masses of those, masses of ephemera, including maps and brochures. We have brochures from 1991 Cadillacs, which are totally inappropriate for a pre-1960 library, so we need to sort out what we keep out of that and what we don't. Maps, we've got quite a lot in the catalogue, plus 3 or 4 boxes that we've collected over the years. Some going back to Vacuum and Neptune and Golden Fleece. We just need to sort out exactly what we've got there. Technical books, I think we must have 2 full sets of Dykes and that sort of technical stuff. Where we catalogue that, how we make that available, knowledge available to our members, whether we do use library thing or whether we find something else to put that on, we're not quite sure at this stage. The motor index of contents, I thought this was going to be a nice, easy little job, but it's become huge. Just the size of their indexing, it was going to take a massive size of a database. I'm not quite sure how we're going to store that index. Again, once we've got a hard core of years done, we'll then see how we manage that to make it available to the wider audience.
Okay, everyone. We could have hands up for anyone who's got a question. I can see that Pete Radcliffe.
Hello. Thanks, Simon. Brian, could I ask, I'm very interested in the big projects you've been talking about with your different My Collector and library thing and that.
Yep.
Have you been scanning page by page all your magazines and documents and manuals and things into various online?
No, that'd be a massive exercise. No, we haven't even contemplated that. I have scanned a lot of publishers' indexes for particularly magazines with 10cc, classic and sports car. I've done all of those and they've all been loaded up onto Magazine Collector. But as far as digitising the actual contents of stuff, no, it's just, say we're a community-based one. We only survive on our own income. It's just beyond our facilities.
Yeah, good. And could I just ask a supplementary one? How much call do you get for the records that you've created? And under what circumstances? Are they, you mentioned members of the public coming in to research things, is that right?
Yes, we have queries of people coming in that want to research things, and just online people looking for various articles. I had one guy from Italy a couple of months ago looking for a particular race report on the Shelsley hill climb in 1930. And we managed to find both in Autocar and in the motor and scan those and sent them off to him.
Terrific.
So we're quite open to doing that for various people, and they just email us through either direct or through Magazine Collector, and we're willing to help.
Yeah, wonderful. Thanks, Brian.
Okay,
I'm impressed, immensely impressed with what you're doing.
Thank you.
The creation of these indexes is truly amazing, but my concern is this, that are we duplicating this in different parts of the world? Obviously, in North America, the appeal of Autocar and Motor may not be as significant as it is in areas such as Australia or the UK. But surely somebody must have been attempting to do this kind of an index before.
I haven't found any online ones. I know I did see a news item on Autocar that they have signed a contract to digitise and index their total back catalogue till 1895. They reckon they were going to take 6 months to do it, but I reckon it's going to take them about 6 years. I'm doing the motor one, particularly for that 1930 pre-war period, because there is a lot of English and American cars reviews and references in there, which relates particularly to our membership. So that's why I've focused on the pre-war for the motor. But I haven't found any other online index for those around the world.
The other group that I'm wondering about is NAM, because, you know, we need to, if somebody like yourself is doing this work, we need to communicate amongst ourselves that this actually exists.
Yes.
Because, you know, you might be doing something that somebody else has already done.
Yeah.
And I certainly feel that this is definitely a case where we don't want to, you know, duplicate efforts.
Agreed. And mostly, apart from the motor, all the other indexes I've done, we've put them all up onto magazinecollector.net, so anyone in the world can access those.
Yeah,
It's a wiki type system, so anyone can update it and anyone can access it.
Nathan Farrow from the National Museum has just commented in our chat that apps like Library Thing go some way to addressing the issues of duplication, as it allows organisations to share their holdings, a bit like, Brian, what you're describing on the magazine.
Well, Library Thing have got 2.5 million collections.
Yep.
So it's a fairly well used for small libraries and for private collections.
Right. Thanks, Louis. Norm, you had a question before we go.
Very similar to Louis. You might well find that private people have made their own indexes.
Yes.
It's a matter of finding. For example, I have the Wheels Index that's not online, but it's published.
Yeah.
Wheels magazine. And I also have a Restored Cars one. Again, it's not online, but somebody has done it.
Is it in hard copy, or is it a hard copy or is it digital?
The Restored Cars one is digital. The Wheels one is a hard copy.
Yeah. They can be. I know all of Wheels, I think, is up on Magazine Collector. I don't think Restored Cars is. But it's not a big job to scan and OCR the hard copy and load it up onto Magazine Collector so anyone can access it.
The Wheels one is for sale. I think it was over $100.
Yeah.
As a bound, properly bound book.
Yeah.
Jenny Forbett.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks very much.
Jenny, good to meet you at long last.
Yes. The Motor Life Museum Library is one that fits in my my description of revitalised libraries.
Yes.
When it moved over from its old place at Kembla Grange, the library had a dedicated space, but it was kind of suffering. So when we went to the librarian, it had a champion in the then curator, and so there's that importance of champions.
Yeah.
And she arranged for the library to be reviewed professionally. I undertook that review, and part of that was the sort of changing of the storage arrangements to better reflect the standards for such a collection in a special library, and also to improve the environmental situation for that library. So just simple things like that can begin to move a library forward in its revitalisation.
Yes.
So just, you know, I mean, Australian Motor Life Library is a really great example if you want to see how a library can move forward through well and come away from what I said about treading water.
Yeah, and I would suggest that 2 years ago I would probably categorise it as treading water. Now I hope, personally, I think we're now probably somewhere between 2 and 3, because we've certainly put a lot of effort and a lot of thought in the last 2 years to opening it up, making it available, and letting people know we're there.
Exactly. Yeah.
Thanks, Jenny. And I'll now go to Alan Chambers.
Brian, I'm just wondering if you might have covered this, or it might have been covered elsewhere, but I'm just wondering whether there's another group that looks after cars after 1940, say to 1980 or 1990.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. But because our museum came out of the veteran and vintage and veteran car club, that's where their focus was. That's what their passion was. So that's why it was deemed as pre-1945.
Thank you.
Professor Harriet Edquist.
Yeah, look, I think listening to all of these incredibly interesting papers, I think, to me, that issue of duplication
Yes.
The issue of clarifying what a collection is all about, and is something that we really wanted to bring to the fore in this conference. And I think there is a role that the AHA might be able to play in bringing everyone together to see what everyone's doing and what everyone's collection is, so that we have a national overview of it. And if there is duplication overseas, make sure that we've got some way of digitally linking into that. I mean, I think no one's getting any younger. The younger generation appears to be absent. So I think we really owe it to ourselves to be extremely ruthless and strategic about the way we think about our collections in the future. And I think we really do need, which is what I'm hoping the AHA can sort of contribute to, a national conversation, so that and one of the things, of course, at the end of this conference, everyone's papers will be up online. So we'll get some idea of who's collecting what. But there's not much point in one group digitising wheels when wheels is already digitised, or it's already got an index and we can do it somewhere else. I mean, it's just a waste of time. So I think it's that sort of strategic thinking possibly is the next step forward, because everyone is just, it's really inspiring to listen to everyone, but I think there is probably some cross purposes and a bit of duplication going on, taking up Louis' point.
Yeah, but can I make a comment that we index our magazines and such like because we could not find them anywhere else.
Oh, no, but that you might then be the people who do that, so no one else in the world has to do it.
Yes.
What I'm saying is that you become the expert in that magazine. Someone else is an expert in wheels. Someone else is an expert in something else.
Yeah.
You don't all try to do everything.
Yes.
That's why it's just
so that these one big overall catalogue, so that you know where to go to find them.
And Harriet, would you see that as potentially an Australian Research Council project or a PhD?
I do see that as an ARC Council project. Yes, indeed. I do think it's a big research project. But I think we've got buy-in now, and what's really interesting is how vibrant all of these collections are, and how people are really trying to do the best by them, and how extraordinarily rich they are. I mean, going back right through the 20th century. So yes, I do see it as a possibility for us, going for an ARC linkage grant where we could get funding to do some of this large strategic project work, which seems to me the next step that we could embark on.
Sounds good.
Hugh King.
Point that I'd love to make, Norm has actually got the detail from me, as has Phil Schudmack and I think Anne Carew. One of the things we bring to this whole party is the fact that over 10 years, I have created personally and then added to a big FileMaker Pro index, convertible easily to Excel, for the totality of Wheels magazine from the beginning up to about 2017, the totality of Road and Track, the American magazine, the totality of Motorsport, the English magazine, and a number of others, Australian Motorsport. And these are not just the magazines held, but the salient articles within. And this was done for my own purposes, not knowing what the future was going to be. I've also databased all of my books that are currently at Eastern Creek, databased them in an Excel spreadsheet, also FileMaker Pro, with about 15 columns of data on each book. That's a good start. That is part of the parcel of intellectual property that is sitting at Eastern Creek, and that makes the collection valuable and possibly, what I'm hearing, leading in Australia. I'm surprised. I've also got the Wheels index as printed, but there is a second edition out, I think only 4 or 5 months ago, same guy. Another thing about Wheels, Sports Car World, and the whole, one of our directors and consistently prolific writers is Peter Robinson, who was for 17 years the editor of Wheels magazine and who was the principal editor at the beginning of Sports Car World, and who's just a total, polymath on all matters Australian when it comes to motoring. And another couple of experts in the same realm are on our board, very carefully selected. Now, we have been hiding our light under a bushel, a bit like Deng Xiaoping, but now, as of last September, we've been able to come out because we've had the premises, we've got the solidity, and we know what we want to do. So I have put this forward to Anne Carew, to Norm, to Phil Schudmack, to others on a visit to Melbourne not so long ago. This is where we're at, and we'd love to get involved, but we have to work this through. I mean, after all, we have the border closed and things like that.
It sounds like, Hugh, that there's a key part of what you've got there is a contributing asset or series of assets. Yes. That as part of that broader project, Harriet, this is an example of if you bring all of those moving parts together, you have a really broad and deep perspective on what's out there.
Yeah, right? Because one of the things is that each club is going to specialise in its own mark.
Yeah.
So that then if people focus on digitising the materials around their mark or around rallying or whatever it is, there's specialisation.
They'll have that.
Exactly. And you put all of those together in a centralised location, you suddenly have this very broad picture of Australian or motorsport or Australian, the auto industry. And
look, right now we are working on the taxonomy of our database. Yeah. We have got lots of ideas about that, and we're being helped by 2 professionals in Canberra who have volunteered their services, and they're good. It'll be cloud-based, it'll be voluminous. We have not approached clubs generally, but we've made it known to the big ones through the Council of Motor Clubs and through other friends that this is happening. And they are encouraged and helping us. We have not started digitisation, that's stage 2, but we understand what the database has got to look like. And we're doing this, as I say, beginners we mean to go on. We're not jumping into this, and we are taking our time in permanent premises.
Thanks, Hugh. Sounds like an interesting integral part of that mapping process, Harriet, that you're talking about.
Hello, Brian. Daryl Meek. I've still got a couple of 100 magazines to get up to you at some stage.
When the border's open?
When the border's finally open, and I'm still happy to bring that Sunbeam with me whenever, if your club wants me to.
I think they've organised transport for that and they're bringing up very shortly.
That's all right. I was prepared to do it for nothing. It's my job. Anyway, it's your money. It's interesting. I was going to be a guest speaker, but circumstances changed for me, and I'm probably glad that I didn't actually make a presentation at the moment, because you pretty much adequately covered, followed up by the questions and the comments that both Harriet, Hugh, and Brian and others have actually made.
Yeah.
And I think that there might be one more contributor, but it really is about this, exactly what Simon and Harriet have just had that side discussion about the need for a project, so that we're not all pulling in different directions.
Yes.
I'm the librarian for both the Veteran Car Club of Australia in Victoria. We have a catalogue of about 2,000 volumes and 25,000 artefacts. And I'm also the librarian for the Ballarat Vintage and Veteran Car Club here. The Vintage and Classic Car Club Ballarat, which we've got 15,000 records in our library. And we actually basically cover what Brian was talking about, mostly post-war. But once again, we have a proprietary library system that the club decided on quite some time ago, but it was at a point when nobody else was doing it. People were keeping libraries in Dewey Decimal indexes on cards. And our experience is a little bit different, is that you're a non-lending library. The club, the Ballarat Club, is solely restricted to club members. And in the 12 years that they've actually had the proprietary library system called Bookmarks from the South Australian government, we've had a total of 700 volumes lent in in 12 years, which goes to show that there is certainly still interest for research in within the clubs.
Yep.
But really, there's not much point in having a library of these sizes if it's not available to the public.
Yeah,
and that's where the proprietary systems that we use need to be online.
Yes.
To be digital, and so we're not duplicating each other. And an example that I use within a region, how many complete copies or collections of the automobile do we need? You know, I know of about 15 complete copies, complete collections of all, 205 volumes. But, surely half that number or 10% of that number would be sufficient if we were able to utilize each other's resources.
Yes.
But look, I'll leave it at that. But
Yep.
One comment I'd like to make is what Hugh made mention of the fact that he put together a Wheels catalogue himself. And as was mentioned, that there's the printed version. Wheels is actually now available. The entire back catalogue is online and entirely digitally searchable, page by page.
Yeah.
You don't need, you could just type in a word and it will give you everything. It's absolutely free and it's 100% online.
It can be a little bit hard to find though, Daryl.
Yeah.
I've had to give people a link to get to it because they couldn't find it.
I'll send you the next copy of the Ballarat Club magazine because I'm actually putting a page in explaining to the members exactly how to go about it.
Well, I mean, the AHA has a resource section on its website.
Yeah,
and it may well be that some of the ideas that have come out of today we can put on our resource section so that AHA members can just, or anyone can just get weird stuff and remote stuff from our web. I mean, that's one of the things we can offer because we are a national program. So I think if everyone gave us suggestions of what we can put on the resource website, save everyone an awful lot of time and stress.
So Brian, just to finish, that Restored Cars catalogue is digital. I've nearly finished correcting it. And if you like, I'll send you a digital copy.
Okay. I don't think full Restored Cars is on Magazine Collector. We did have a full set in the library, but about 4 years ago, someone decided it was inappropriate and threw it out.
Oh, there you go.
So
we're
missing about 40 in the middle. We've managed to recover the rest, the start and the finish, but we've got 40 in the middle we're missing, but we're getting there.
Oh, well, let me know which ones and I'll get them for you as well.
Yes, I'll be happy to take the index and we'll do something with it.